Hi, everyone, and thank you to Matt G and everyone else who's joining us. This is our tribute, or my tribute to the Phantom Menace, which came out in 1999, and then also Revenge of the Sith, which came out in 2005. And, just another thank you to George Lucas for the beautiful work he's done with Star Wars and what he's given us through his imagination, how he's seen Anakin's journey into Vader. So, I am glad you guys are here. First of all, I want to go ahead and have the panel introduce themselves, and we'll start with Miss Martin here and move on to Stig, and then I'll address the chat. And we'll go from there. So go ahead, Miss Martin.
Oh, well, hello, everybody. My name's Miss Muses, Teresa Martin, and I have a YouTube channel, Miss Martin Muses, where I talk about just about anything that interests me, including things like Star Wars. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. And then, all right, to Mr. Kenobi right there. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello there. Just a fellow from Norway, nothing special. Just a nerdy fellow who talks about stuff he likes.
Yes. And I'm so glad to have you on as well. I've had him on quite a few of my coffee chats, and he's always pleasant to have on. Always is interesting to having a conversation, and his knowledge for writing and just even lore is really, really, really great. And I really appreciate both of these individuals here with me today. So we do have Matt G here. Oh my gosh, hello. And so thank you so much. And then hello all from Alec Rogan's Ghost. There we go. And hail. And Lady Terrell, celebration day. Yes, it is. And so we have more people trickling in right now. So let's go ahead. Before we came live, we were basically talking about the score. So let's go ahead and just talk about John Williams' score with both the Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. And again, the Phantom Menace basically is the beginning of Anakin's journey as a Jedi, and the Revenge of the Sith is basically his ending and his ascension into Vader. So, Teresa, go ahead and tell us what you think about both of the score, or any pivotal areas you liked about the score in the Phantom Menace versus the Revenge of the Sith. And that question also goes to you, Stig. So we'll start with Teresa.
Oh, for sure. My opinion of the score of the Phantom Menace is that it is one of the best Star Wars scores there is. It goes up along with the original trilogy. And what John Williams does that's so ingenious is he takes a lot of the themes from the original trilogy, a lot of the leitmotifs, and he twists and inverts them. So, for example, when you take the Anakin's theme, it is Darth Vader's theme using slightly different intervals, slightly different tonalities, but ending with the da-da-dum, da-da-dum. And I was playing it on the piano this morning, and it was just messing me up because it's so dissonant in a different kind of a way.
Yeah.
So I like the way he twists that. So it's like a foreshadowing. It has his innocence, but you're disturbed by it because you should be disturbed because you know what Anakin is going to become.
Yes.
That's one of those that's really cool. And then of course the other foreshadowing theme at the end during the parade, where they take the Emperor's theme and turn it into a major piece and change one interval, the da da da, instead of the minor third, and make it a happy parade. And you feel like you're watching your own funeral. I love it. It is.
Oh, that
so
gave me
much
the chills. Oh my God, yes. And I have a background in music as well. I played in the band, and I also, with teaching belly dance and stuff, we also focus on not dancing to the lyrics, but dancing to the notes, to the melodies, to different aspects of that instruments and stuff, and learning the counts and the score and everything like that. And so I understand what she's talking about. And so I could just hear it in my head. And I encourage every single one of you guys that are here to, if you don't have John Williams music for the Star Wars, get them, because just notice, even if you don't understand, music in a sense of like the score, the notes and all that, when you listen to it, just listening to it, you can hear the changes, like Miss Martin said. You can hear the callbacks and the evolution of it, just like we see Anakin's evolution into Vader, or his ascension into Vader. So the foreshadowing. So yes, so it just gives me the chill. So you want anything else to add on to that?
Well, of course, the magnum opus of the Phantom Menace, the Duel of the Fates.
Yeah.
That when that came out, they released it as a music video. It floored all of us. And then when we saw the movie and saw how they incorporated it into that unbelievable lightsaber battle and using the choral music, they'd only used a little bit of choral music in the original trilogy at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
But we just went full throttle, and it's a seminal piece, I think, of the prequel trilogy.
Yeah, and then just also shows the brilliance of John Williams as well, because you know, we heard it in the Last Jedi, and then we get it in the Phantom Menace. So using that to kind of have like what George Lucas says is like the nods between the movie and stuff, and so it's phenomenal. Just even with the music, you could see all of that foreshadowing and all of that ties together. It's a story. It's the score is, it's a story in its own self. So, yes. So all right, Stig, so what did you like about the score in the Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith?
Well, I don't know what the hell you guys were talking about.
It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's okay. This is what you like about it, you know. So yeah.
I just thought it was awesome from start
Okay.
to finish. I liked it.
Yeah.
And as for the Duel of the Fates, I have a vague memory of myself behind my parents' home when they weren't at home, practicing with a wooden stick that I thought was a lightsaber at the moment.
Yeah.
Which I shouldn't have done because I was 20, but still.
It's like I was 20 years old, but I still did it. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, you know, it's just it fits perfectly. John Williams is a master composer, so
yeah,
that's what you get, really. And other than that, I can't add to what you two were saying because you know more than I do about this.
Yeah. That's okay. That's okay. I mean, everybody has like, no matter like how educated you are with something or, you know, or not, there's always something, if you like it, there's always something that you're going to find out that you share that you like. And then it also complements onto what the other person says, even if you don't fully understand, like even how to play music and stuff. Yeah. So, but yes, again, we all agree that he's brilliant. You know, the music also helped carry the Star Wars, and it was brilliant when we had the quiet scenes, and it was brilliant when we had the duels and the battles and stuff, and how well that the score carried you through the movie as well. So yes, very, very much so. So yeah, so again, everybody who's coming in, this is the anniversary of the Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith, and I have Miss Martin Muse and Stig Kenobi in here with us, and we're discussing, and I'm actually giving them an interview according to this movie and discussing both of them in general. And it's not going to be as extensive as my first interview with that I had Abu Nas, because it was just one single person in one movie. So we're going to like break down like portions of each movie, and I'm going to ask them questions and, you know, have them relate or tell me what they thought about that scene or that event in the movies and stuff. So we have the Phantom Menace, and we see in the beginning that they are having you know, like there's a trade you know, conflict going on, and the Supreme Chancellor sends off secretly sends off two Jedi to settle the conflict, and they do not. Basically, the conflict's not settled. You know, we see that with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon battling the droidekas and fleeing from there. So in the beginning, we have Obi-Wan, and this is something that I want you guys to, you know, kind of give me your idea or what you think about this. Is in the beginning, we have Obi-Wan as a Padawan with his master, and they're fighting together. And in the Phantom Menace, and then in the beginning, we have of the Revenge of the Sith, we have Obi-Wan is now a Jedi Master, and he's fighting with who was his Padawan and now is a Jedi Knight in Revenge of the Sith. So tell me what you know, like compare these two. And you can use the whole scene of the beginning of the Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith as well. What you think about that those arcs, seeing Obi-Wan becoming the Jedi master and trainer. And, of course, Qui-Gon's dead. And that's the reason why he stepped up into that arc. And now we see, you know, we see now Anakin as a Jedi Knight. So if you guys want to expand on that a little more, so go ahead, Teresa. I mean, it may be little or not at all, but.
Mm-hmm. I think that Obi-Wan is one of the great highlights of the Phantom Menace. There's a lot to be said about what is not a highlight in that movie. But he personified Ewan McGregor, what Obi-Wan Kenobi, what I imagined him to be.
Yeah.
And then so, because, well, first of all, my whole life, Obi-Wan Kenobi was this old man.
Yeah.
And then you have that scene and it's like, hot damn. Obi-Wan. It's a total different guy. Yeah, it's like he's young, he's hot, he's a little bit of a hothead, but he's still very wise. Yeah. Very wise. He perceives a lot. Yeah. He perceives a lot in this movie that many of the other Jedi just aren't catching on to. And I also like his little snarky stuff. So you see that he's still young. He says a few smart aleck things to Qui-Gon when they're doing, like when he says, "You were right, Master. The negotiations were short." Things like that are magnificent. And then when if you wanted me to compare that, the big leap over to the Revenge of the Sith, well, for sure, because obviously he's going to change because he's going to be much older. They've been through the war, they lost his mentor. So Obi-Wan goes through a lot. A lot of focus is on what Anakin goes through to transform into who he is. But Obi-Wan's journey is just as compelling, I think. And I think that if it were in the hands of a lesser actor than Ewan McGregor, I'm not so sure it would have been able to be pulled off the way it was.
Yeah, exactly. And so, Stig, so what do you think about this arc? Seeing the progression between Jedi Master and their Padawans, and that's including, like what I said, Obi-Wan now becoming a Padawan into a Master or into a Jedi Knight, being able to train Anakin, and then we see them in a very different light in Revenge of the Sith. So, what do you think about what's your view on that?
Well, you just said it.
Okay, I thought maybe you could expand on that a little bit more if you have anything else to talk about.
The first scenes in Phantom Menace is also the first time you see Jedi fighting together.
Yes,
and that's a little message right off the bat that there's plenty of Jedi in this time period. When Revenge of the Sith starts, there's far less.
Yeah.
And then Obi-Wan has switched roles. He's gone from Padawan to a Master, which is kind of a full circle almost for him.
Yeah.
Another full progression, I guess.
Yes.
Other than that, I'm not sure if it mirrors too much. It's just that there's a Master and an apprentice together.
Yeah.
Entering a spaceship and then have to flee.
Yeah.
Kind of. Or rather, they don't flee, do they? They crash. They take the ship with them. But yeah, it's both of them start off with action.
They do.
Which is it's a Star Wars movie. That's what it should kind of. It should be excitement from the get-go.
Yeah. Exactly. And there was this
at the end of the day, Star Wars is an action adventure story, really. With a lot of family stuff tied into it. So it's basically action adventure soap opera in a way.
Oh yeah, and that's what George Lucas intended it to be. And if you got to see, and I still have to post that video there, but there's a interview from George explaining what Star Wars is and what it isn't. It's a recent interview that he did. I think it was aired on his birthday. And basically, he's like, it's Star Wars is never about action. That's what he said. It was never about the action scenes. So I thought that was very interesting when he said that. It was about, the story. And rather you care in seeing how much the characters cared about their family and about their friends and all this. I mean, it's a very compelling, like just very short interview of George Lucas's that he did. And so that's what I find interesting, because there is a lot of action, but there needs to be action because it's called Star Wars. We need to see the conflict. We need to see the battles to understand what's going on, and especially for the main protagonists in the two trilogies is why they are the way they are. So and then plus it's in space, and he's also said before it's basically about it's a space drama, it's a space opera.
Yeah, and it's not sci-fi. It's fantasy set in space.
Yeah, it is. It is.
None of the science is explained, and it's not futuristic.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago,
Yeah.
That's what it starts with. So it's not any kind of future for our planet, or it doesn't explore any technological theories we have.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just there and it works, and that's the depth of the explanation for it, really.
Yeah. All right. So before we move on from these few scenes here that I'm going to ask you guys, I want to go ahead and ask both of you guys a very important question. Who is your favorite and least favorite of basically the prequel trilogy as a whole? Since these characters are basically shown in every single one of the trilogy or the movies. So we'll go ahead and start with you, Stig, and then go on to Teresa.
Which character from the trilogy I like the best that has been in all three movies?
Yes.
Okay. Well, hello
Might
there.
be obvious.
Yeah. Take a wild guess.
Yeah. That's why you were such the easy one to go to first.
Yeah.
I think it's all too easy.
Yeah. No, it's Kenobi, but he was also probably my favorite in the original trilogy as well.
Okay. All right. And so who was your least favorite?
Jar Jar Binks.
Okay. And it's okay. It is okay. And people, this doesn't mean it refers to the actor. It just means it refers to the character in the galaxy far, far away. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I like the actor. He seems like a really cool guy, but I hate Jar Jar Binks. I want Jar Jar Binks to die in a bloody mess.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like I said, it's okay to have likes and dislikes. People misinterpret thinking that you mean the actor or the actress or whatever.
No, but the Gungan race I thought was cool. I like their underwater city and stuff like that. That was awesome. But I just didn't like Jar Jar. It was too much. It was too much slapstick.
Yeah. It was kind of off-putting for you, basically. It was like, yeah, a little bit's okay, but too much, it's like you kind of get taken out of the experience in that time frame that character's in, right?
Yeah, I remember stabbing myself with a knife to make the pain of watching Jar Jar go away.
I'm glad you survived that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. That's how painfully he did not like it.
He's still better than most of the sequel trilogy characters, because Jar Jar, like him or not, he's actually a good character. He actually has an arc and he has development, and he's not in the same place as he is when he starts the story as when he finishes. So there's nothing wrong with his character arc or his species or all that, but it's just
General Stig, you're a bold one.
No, I have all my hair still. Bold. Sorry,
bold, not bald. Sidious is my favorite, hands down. So smart and cunning. And we'll get into his arc too as well. So Teresa, who is your favorite and least favorite?
From I have different ones for the different movies, but
okay then.
Oh, can I say that too, and then say?
Well, if she can, then I want to do that too.
Okay. Well, first I'll do it from the whole trilogy then.
Yes.
Okay. My My absolute favorite, okay, besides Obi-Wan, to me that's given. I've already said that, but Palpatine.
Okay.
Absolutely. Every single scene that man is in is unbelievably amazing. He steals almost the entire prequel trilogy just by walking in and saying a few lines. You see it all behind the actor's eyes, and especially in the Phantom Menace, he was so insidious. He just the way when Padme says to him, "I hope you'll bring order back to the Senate," and he just looks and then just does a teeny tiny little smirk.
The Palpatine smirk. Yes, you could see that in every single movie. Like even when she was getting like the attempted assassination in the beginning of Attack of the Clone, and he was like, he was like showing his concern, but you can also see like that smirk of like kind of like a smirk, but then a kind of like inkling of disappointment.
Yeah, it's like darn.
Yeah, the nuances in his facial features, man, were brilliant.
Well, you know, that's what you get if you hire stage actors.
Yeah.
They're always better, and even in the Lord of the Rings, you see it because they for the heavy characters they hired stage actors.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like Eowyn, she was a stage actress, and
Yeah,
many of them were.
The guy who played Denethor and Hugo Weaving is absolute stage actor Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
Yep. Gosh, he's great. So, and then my least my least favorite is Padme. I actually can't stand Padme.
Okay, let's elaborate on this a little bit more. So tell us why.
But her abs.
Her abs.
Yes, I know how every man felt when she got her shirt ripped off in Attack of the Clones. I will give you that. I mean, she was very fit. Okay. First of all, Natalie Portman is beautiful. She's beautiful and she's a great actress. But Padme, I thought, was not a likable character. I think I liked her a lot better in the Phantom Menace than I did in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, because I felt like even though in some aspects of her life she had some strength, for example, in her politics, I thought that she was very weak around Anakin in their relationship. And to go back to Attack of the Clones, when he came back and said, "I killed them all, the women and the children, I slaughtered them like animals," for me, that would have been it. It would have, no way in hell would I have given that man the time of day for any reason after that. And she excused it. It's like, it's okay to be human. It's like being human is having a bad day, stubbing your toe and using the F-bomb and snapping at your kids or your spouse or something.
Yeah.
Slaughtering a whole village, including women and children.
It's not human.
Yeah. And so I thought that she definitely way overlooked Anakin's faults. And then in Revenge of the Sith, she's even like, "Oh, Anakin, just hold me. Let's go back to the way things were." And I'm just like, woman, wake up.
Just to chime in, let's go back to the way things were. The way things were was him slaughtering a village.
So actually, he did go back to the way things were. He slaughtered a bunch of children.
Let's just kill a village so we feel better again. Hold me like you did in that massacre.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, you're right. So when they said he killed all those children, should have been like, "Oh, just like when we were falling in love." Yeah. And then I think the worst part of her was she died from losing the will to live.
Yeah.
Right after giving birth.
Yeah.
Right after giving birth.
Purpose to live, right? Because if you have kids, wouldn't that be a purpose to stay alive? Not just
exactly
events that happen between you and your partner. And I mean, I guess you could say every woman could be different in that aspect, but then wouldn't that make her selfish?
I don't know.
Yes,
Poor Anakin.
everything for her was about Anakin. Anakin. It was disturbing to see her shed her motherhood. I mean, because that's one of the things that makes a woman so great, whether she has natural children or, spiritual children, whatever it is. We're mama bears. We protect the young and the innocent. I'm going to stereotype, but it's like that is one of our great strengths. That's one of the great strengths of femininity. And then to go, oh, yes, I have these children that are going to be in danger, but oh, Anakin broke my heart. I've lost the will to live.
Yeah.
And I thought that was incredibly weak, incredibly cowardly, and rather disturbing.
Anakin, Padme kind of has a history of not giving a shit about the kids because she didn't give a damn about those Sand People kids.
Nope.
The younglings she was mildly upset with, So it fits with her character that she says, "Nah, I don't want kids. I'm going to croak."
Oh my God. All right. Oh goodness. But yeah, I get the point. I get that. Whether it's bad development for the character, through the script or not, or we'll never know. But I would say that the novels flesh out a lot more, because you can only tell so much in the movie rather versus the novel. But that still doesn't, you want the movie to explain things coherently, not the novelizations. And so I could see that, the Padme's arc can be off-putting for how she handled things and how that could have been developed better, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I don't even think the Clone Wars does a good job developing that relationship, to be honest.
No, and that's what I was going to get at too, is that we have her in the Attack of the Clones, and she's finding out about Anakin's I guess you could say revenge and stuff for his mom by him killing the Tusken tribe. And then we have that in between lore and the Clone Wars that everybody's gotten involved in. And yet we don't see, there's no good things for her to say. Can we just go back to how it used to be? And I know she was referring back to on Naboo next to the lake, but when she refers back to the past, there's a lot of turmoil in the past because they're going through war as well. So that was very vague and very narrow. It's like she was just talking to one point time of frame, which you can't live like that all the damn time either. So I mean, that's just what I'm
Dave M in the chat is watching Phantom Menace for the first time. That's cool. I'm envious.
Yeah, seeing something for the first time. Yes.
I have a question for you two, though.
Okay.
Where did you watch the Phantom Menace for the first time?
Yeah, I was gonna get at that for both of them as we move on. So yes,
sorry.
thank you, Stig. No, it's okay. It's fine. So with Teresa, where were you when you watched our both movies?
For the first time. Well, The Phantom Menace I saw opening day. I wasn't able to go to the midnight one because of my work situation, but right after I got off work, me and my mom and a good friend, we went and saw it in a packed theater. It was an amazing experience. The theater was electric. We were clapping, we were cheering, and while there were parts of it, of course, a few things with Jar Jar made you cringe. The things like the lightsaber battle, it was so magnificent seeing that on the big screen and how beautifully it was shot. And just the Duel of the Fates lightsaber battle is for me the best one of the trilogy. So that's where I saw the first one. Now the Revenge of the Sith I actually saw for the first time at a press screening. So I had a different experience when I saw it the first time because we all had to behave ourselves and act like we were grown-ups. So it was me and about 10 other people,
Wow.
watching it 2 weeks before and the movie came out. So that was how I saw Revenge of the Sith. So I had to kind of keep my mouth shut because some of my friends were like, "Don't you dare!" So it's like, "Okay, I won't." So I knew better than to do that. But yeah, but in a way, it was also kind of nice to see it for the first time that way because it was still on the big screen, but it was very quiet. So you could really just process it a little bit. So that also,
that's how we watch movies at the cinema in Norway. People shut up and just watch the movie. There's no cheering or anything. That's we're civilized.
Well,
all right.
Well, we are barbarians. I will admit that.
We're civilized, Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are too busy pillaging, right?
Yeah. All right. So for you, Stig, where were you, or like how did you experience the movies for the first time?
Well, it's interesting that Teresa said pillaging because I got a phone call from a friend asking me if I wanted to come over to his place and watch a movie. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Went over, and he had a bootleg Phantom Menace on VHS.
Oh,
yeah, and it was while it was being shown in the cinema.
Yeah,
and it was so someone had filmed it with a camera, and it was actually very well done. So it was very watchable. So I then ran home to my parents' place, picked up their VCR, went back again, and copied the movie. Yeah, pillaging was an apt word. As for Revenge of the Sith, and this is very interesting given what Teresa said, because same thing happened.
Yeah.
Same friend, but this time he had it on a digital copy.
Okay.
Which had like a little watermark text thing at the bottom that said press release.
Oh.
So I got it on DVD quality.
Yeah.
While it was still in the cinema, and I was like, shit, I'm not going to the cinema with a lot of annoying people. So I copied it on CDs and watched it probably 3 times in a row. Wow. So yeah, I basically got bootlegs of both movies, but I have bought them probably 3 times since. So
yeah,
my conscience is clear.
And thank you for sharing how Vikings do it.
Yeah, I'm all zen about it.
Yeah. All right. So for me, I got to go see them in the movie. Both of them in the theater. So I was just a classic moviegoer. Went in. Still was amazed with Star Wars, so that never changed my opinion about the OT. And we hear a lot of complaints. Well, it really doesn't go with the OT, or there's so many different complaints and whatever. And I'm like, if you understand the lore, if you understand the context, no matter how well, like you think, or how unwell you think the scripts were written or whatever, the story was still consistent with the overall story of Star Wars.
Yeah, so, it didn't contradict the OT much. The only thing I noticed was had Leia saying that she remembered her mother and stuff. So
yeah,
that was pretty much the only thing. But yeah, but the prequels are looking better and better each year.
Yeah,
because they're not the worst anymore, by far.
Yeah, well, and I never thought of them as the worst either. But they become timeless, just like the OT, because they go together. It's they're one continuous story.
Every time I watch them, they grow on me.
Yeah.
And I like them from the get go, though.
Yeah, exactly.
I never bashed it with the prequels back then.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to go into the relationship between Padme and Anakin. And I know we already kind of have an idea which way Teresa's going to go with this, but like I said, I love to hear all voices, all opinions on this, because I learned too. I learned to look at some things differently, and even if I agree or disagree, it's all about learning. It's all about sharing voices and opinions as well. So we see on the Phantom Menace, Anakin meets Padme for the first time. And so this is the whole thing of when when they are stranded on Tatooine because they flee Naboo. So they rescue or get Padme, they flee Naboo, and of course their hyperdrive is all whacked, and so they go to Tatooine because that's the nearest planet, and so it kind of mirrors a little bit the A New Hope, where Tatooine's like the refuge planet in a sense, and so he meets her for the first time, and he like talks to her how beautiful she is, like she's like the angel. And then we have them in the relationship now where we're finding out she's pregnant with their children or their child. And so, I mean, I don't know if this is more of, it's not really a question, but just like how you thought about that progression between the two. And we kind of already know what Teresa thinks about it because she kind of gave that detail already. So we'll start with Stig. And even you could even break down the scene where we see, Padme talking with Anakin in Watto's shop, and then Padme talking to Anakin in the Senate, I guess you could say, halls. I guess that's what it is.
That's the weak part of the whole trilogy. It's Anakin's interactions with Padme, because the dialogue is bad.
Yeah.
And it makes the actors look bad, because how the heck can you deliver some of those lines, right?
Yeah.
And in episode 3, Natalie Portman, who's an excellent actress, is the worst actress in that movie. She's terrible.
Yeah.
And I know Hayden gets a lot of stick, but he's, whenever he's talking to Obi-Wan or other characters, he's great.
Yeah.
It's just he's talking to Natalie Portman. So maybe Natalie Portman's the problem.
I don't know. But that's a good analysis. And for myself with this one right here, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, and we're also going to talk about the pod racing and all that as well, is that the setup is very important to the overall arc and the ending of the relationship as well. And so I understand that little Anakin was very, very cheesy because he was just comparing to some mythical or maybe not mythical creatures that he's heard about through hearing travelers and, people coming in and out of the shops and stuff. And they're 5 years apart in age, I believe.
It was 4? Probably, but when I was talking about
14 and he was 9. Yeah.
Oh, I have to correct myself. She absolutely likes kids.
Oh Lord!
Wow.
Sorry,
they're like 12 years apart. That's not bad at all. And she was still a kid, a teenager, still a kid.
Yeah, I was making a bad joke.
I know you were. That's why I'm laughing at that.
Well, she was definitely a cradle robber in the Attack of the Clones.
I mean, if she wanted him, she could have just bought him.
But she didn't. There was no. I mean, there wasn't a huge interest of as in love during that time. I think there was more of a compassion interest in wanting to understand this little boy who is a slave. Yeah, that's how I got it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's how Padme was, and Anakin was. Anakin obviously had a crush, but he's like a little boy looking at her. But yeah, I mean, it would have been really creepy if it was anything other than that, like a big sister.
She was like I bet you she's probably the prettiest or beautiful thing that he's ever seen in his little life that's gone through. Because we're talking about Tatooine.
Yeah.
Versus, the planet of Naboo where she comes from, and the difference in social structures.
Yeah.
Yeah. All he had to look at was basically Watto and his mom. So
yeah.
I'm guessing the boy was
gorgeous though too in a rough and tumble way, I guess you could say. She was like handsome. There we go.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I like Shmi.
She's a damn sweet, but
I
she's
was waiting for that.
she's a
Oh
very,
gosh.
she's a very good actress. She is.
Mhm. Yeah. All right. So I know what you feel about this, about Padme and stuff. So do you agree that it was kind of like, like the setup basically between the characters, the beginning and ending really, really matters. And, and we already know what you feel. So maybe if you wanted to elaborate on that a little bit more. I mean, we're not trying to,
Elaborate on how I feel,
huh?
or how they foreshadowed it. I'm not
Yeah,
sure I
it could
understand
be
the
any
question.
which way, how they foreshadow it, how the setup, because we do see in the beginning, their meeting and the relationship beginning, and then at the end of where they end up at.
Oh, for sure. Well, I have always had an opinion about Anakin and Padme from Anakin's point of view, that it was not exactly a pure kind of love. It was a possessive kind of a love. It was an obsessive kind of love. And we saw that the way he ended up in Revenge of the Sith. When he's a little boy, he looks at this beautiful girl and he's like a lost little puppy dog. And then he goes off to become a Jedi where he's not allowed to be with chicks. And he's been obsessing over her for 10 years, and he's almost a creeper in Attack of the Clones, like how it was in my dreams. And then she's like, you're making me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And he's like, sorry, my lady. And it's just like he was obsessed with her.
Yeah, and I kind of understand it. Like if you look at it with the Jedi at the time, they didn't care for attachments and stuff, and he came into the order, later in life, so he didn't have that conditioning that, and he didn't, that they would get from learning just the Jedi or their family.
Yeah, there's one bit of foreshadowing that people don't pick up on, and it's right there on the screen. Are you an angel? In episode 3, he turns her into one. She dies.
That's very interesting.
Like, then I'll make you one, you witch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me,
no, I think that for what they did in the show, for what they did in the prequel, I thought their introduction was great. It was good. It was very consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's get to Qui-Gon and how he begins this this pod racing thing, and how he influences Watto. And because he's only in this movie for a short, or like a little over half of the movie, I guess you could say, and how he influences Anakin's freedom, even though Jedi aren't supposed to use mind tricks for for their personal needs and their personal and to change the future and stuff. And when you see the dice rolling for Anakin, Anakin's freedom, if he wins the pod race versus if he doesn't. So what do you guys think about that when it's according to Qui-Gon and the Jedi? Just because we're learning more about how Jedi work, in the prequel trilogies, what the Force means to them, how they're supposed to use the Force, and it sets up basically the Force abilities in the Jedi Order, and also shows us a little bit of how the Jedi Order is both good and then has some, some stuff that needs to be corrected in a sense. So, Teresa, since I know she gave us a good, kind of a foreshadowing on what she may or may not like about Qui-Gon. So go ahead and share. I'll have you go first.
Yeah. Well, you gave a very good introduction to this. I actually am one of the people of the opinion that Qui-Gon is one of the great villains of the prequel trilogy.
Okay.
I think that he unwittingly, and the reason why is because of his pride. He has disordered pride in himself. And one of those is the examples that you just said, where he cheats on a bet against a weaker quote unquote person. Jedi aren't supposed to be doing that. The imbalance of power in that situation, and again the fact that it seemed like the second he found out about Anakin having those midichlorians and there being no father, he was almost obsessed with it. It's like all of a sudden he started breaking every rule, and even Obi-Wan was checking him and saying, Master, maybe you should be listening to the council on this. So no, I think that he was incredibly shady. He allowed his feelings to cloud his judgment, and he allowed his pride. And the reason why I say pride is we see it especially when they're on Coruscant, when Obi-Wan is again trying to talk to him. It's like, hey man, let's chill, don't do anything against the council. And he just goes, I will do what I must. And I'm like, every time he says that line, I want to punch him in the face. And part of me is like, or you know what, you're not going to do what you must, you stupid Egypt. How about you do what's right and get your head out of your rear end? I think he was incredibly fair.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that as well, because people, recently we've been getting so much praise about Qui-Gon, about how he's the perfect Jedi and how he listens to the living force. So if he listens to the living force, then it's not what he wants, it's what the force wants. And so I'm just going to go ahead and reiterate that, even though he says, I must do what I must do what I want, basically. Or I must. And so he's put his own personal feelings into the situation, whereas we are supposed to believe that he believes in the living force and that he follows the will of the force. If that's the case, then he would say it's the will of the force, not what he wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can say it's the will of the force that I win $1 million and that I become Miss Universe. You can say all these things that you really want, but is it really the will of the force, or is it the will of you? And conveniently saying it's the will of the force. It's what I want. Isn't it convenient that what I want is what the force wants?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I say BS. Living force my rear end. No, that's how I take it.
Yeah, and when you get into the force culture and stuff, like allowing the force to guide you in the force, because that's the thing in Star Wars, is like things happen and it's through the will of the force. We cannot control them, nor once we put pride into it as well. And so there's a huge contradiction I wouldn't say contradiction, but with Qui-Gon, he doesn't follow the rules, and no, there's no such thing as gray Jedi. He basically was just acting on his own, fruition for events and stuff as well, whether it was rightfully done or not. So, Stig, what do you think?
Well, I think he's bordering on being a fanatic when it comes to the Force.
Yeah.
He trusts it blindly, and I think he knows about the prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what makes him do what he does, because earlier in the movie he's more laid back and more relaxed about it, but as soon as they find Anakin, he changes. Like he gets completely focused and loses sight of everything else. He even says it, that your focus determines your reality.
Yeah, exactly.
But overall, I thought it was a good character.
Yeah.
Every character should have a flaw.
Yeah, of course.
It makes them more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He was a good but flawed Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, I guess, he's stubborn, and even Yoda says this, because he says he senses Qui-Gon's defiance in Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So he's stubborn.
Yeah. Yeah, good take. So let's talk about the foreshadowing of Anakin's piloting skills and the pod race as well. So we have the pod races, and Anakin was the only human being that can do the pod race, of course, because he is basically the chosen one and has the highest midichlorians ever. And we didn't really touch bases on that scene, so we'll go into that as well with this. So we get a sense, and just like with Luke Skywalker in A New Hope, explain why they have these abilities. Like with Luke, he can pilot an X-Wing because his T-16's from the same company, and it's just I would say dumbed down version of the X-Wing. And then he also used, the shooting skill he has from piloting. It's from shooting the Womp Rat holes and Womp Rats in Baker's Canyon on Tatooine. And so we learned that. So we get a foreshadowing. We learn that Luke is a great pilot because of that. And we also know that the Force, without being trained to use the Force, you have innate Force abilities, which basically are instincts. And those Force instincts kind of help protect the Force, the Force sensitive. And so we learn that with both, this movie and A New Hope. And so we have Anakin as the pod racer. And so what do you guys do? Tell me what you liked about and maybe not liked about the pod racing. And it's not really a comparison between this movie and the Revenge of the Sith, because we already know that he's a great pilot. This is just, his foreshadowing or his abilities we learn about. So let's see. I was like, pick whoever wants to go first this time.
Okay. Well, I did enjoy the pod race. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just like Minnie, I think it went on a little bit too long. But one aspect of it that I really, really liked was the character Sebulba. I thought he was friggin' awesome. And the way he kind of had that Snoopy World War I flying ace thing going on. I thought he was a great villain. He was one of my favorite little aliens from it. And the way he and Anakin were, rubbing his racing, as they say in NASCAR, it was a lot of fun. The score was great. The pageantry was great. I thought it was a very fun scene.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about you, Stig? You have anything to add to that or your own opinion?
First off, Orville Nation, you need to explain that in the chat, because I'm wondering what that is.
Looks like George is back in Star Wars. I think it's just we won't talk about that just right now. So yeah.
But the pod race, I liked the pod race. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed something, that every shot in the pod race goes from left to right.
Okay.
And once you see it, you can't unsee it, but it's kind of weird.
Oh, I'll have to rewatch that, because I never noticed that, but I don't think any of the shots ever bothered me either, though.
No, it doesn't bother me, but it's a bit weird that the pods always go from left to right on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
The pod race itself was excellent.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit too long. I don't know. But the pilots, though, I mean, one of them looks like a half melted lemon with arms and legs.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't like him. It looked like something from a Pixar movie. I just no. And that stupid announcer commentary guy with two heads, didn't like him either. And a little bit too much slapstick. But watching the pod race on Blu-ray was a superb experience. I really enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So, and like I said, this wasn't necessarily a question, but other than just what your thoughts on this is, like I said, in A New Hope and this movie, The Phantom Menace, it just basically gives us an idea, whether explained or shown or whatever, that how these Force users are able to be skilled pilots coming from a backwater world such as Tatooine.
Oh, and you can spot in the audience,
Mm-hmm.
you can see Indiana Jones.
Oh, I have to take a look at that. Great catch.
Yeah, he's in the audience, and Warwick Davis is there.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I
remember him.
That character actually got transferred over to the Solo movie. He plays the same character as guys in the audience. There was something else too. I think there was you could see a Coca-Cola bottle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know about the Coca-Cola bottle. Yeah, but now I have another purpose. And the idea of this live stream to celebrate the two movies and just question, put these two on interview is, also discovering new things that we may have not caught in the movies as well, so we can go back and watch it in a different light as well. So so everybody take notes. There's something to look at now, something more intriguing to look at, just to catch those little nuances, I guess you can say. So go ahead. Or was that, did I echo? Was that me echoing? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, I think that was an echo. I think that was you.
Oh, okay. I'm echoing or someone's echoing. But yeah. So we have that pod race, and like I said, it was just basically giving us a glimpse to his abilities. Because then we later on in the movie we see him, hiding in the starfighter and going on autopilot, and he does know how to have some control. And of course, R2 is in there, and and he basically is one of the the catalyst to destroying the Federation ship that controls the droid army and stuff. So I thought that was very fascinating as well.
But that one actually mirrors Luke as well, because both of them destroy a space station at the end of the first movie.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to get at. Yes.
Oh, and Jedi Padawan Tano in the chat points out that Aura Singh is at the pod race. That is true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Joel added another EU character to it.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, and I mentioned this with the last interview I did for Attack of the Clone, is that George used a lot of EU in the prequel trilogies because the EU is already being expanded on by the time he came
even Coruscant is from the EU. That's the name.
Yep. Exactly. So another thing on that. So he did love the EU and used it a lot and helped out a lot with it, even if it's just setting the rules for a lot of the books. There was also involvement. So but I feel like I'm a broken record on that. But yeah, so we have Anakin being taken back to the Jedi Order with Qui-Gon because he is the chosen one, and this is about the midichlorians as well and the Count as well. And one thing that I caught, and we could talk about the midichlorians as well in this little part here, is that when he gets taken over to Coruscant to the Jedi Temple, and they basically interview Anakin about his Force abilities. What I thought was very interesting, and I wouldn't say it's contradicting, but then it just had me thinking, is that he was like, you're thinking of your mom, and he's like, yes, I am. I miss her. And then Yoda talks about fear. And I'm like, missing someone does not mean fear.
Mm-hmm.
He goes straight from Anakin saying I miss her to Yoda saying fear, talking about fear. And so that got me thinking about how kind of that was a little bit misleading, maybe, because missing someone is not fear. Longing to see someone or wondering what's going to happen with their loved one is not fear. And worry can go into fear, yes. And so it goes into, and I think maybe that wasn't very fleshed out about attachment then. And that I know that focus was attachment. So, Teresa, go ahead, and if you want to talk about the midichlorians and just that little scene there. And I wish I could play. I was going to try to play that little tiny clip, but I've already had one of my live chat or live streams taken down for strike. So. Yeah.
Well, to go to the whole thing about fear, to go to that thematic issue, I thought that there were two parts of it that were revealed in that scene. They were sensing a great deal of fear.
Yeah.
And the way I always interpreted that was that they were sensing disordered fear within Anakin. Everyone is worried about their mother, but yeah, that it was something that was consuming, and they were, your thoughts dwell on your mother. And that they sense that about him, that it was just a little too much. Also, though, the tension where he says back, I miss her. That's where I think the Jedi went wrong in the prequel trilogy, because it seems like the way they dealt with it was, well, just get over it, or just think about your mother and all that. And it's like, no, the feelings are real. And if feelings are there, they have to be confronted. You can't sweep them under the rug. And that, yes, they sensed great fear. He's saying he misses her. So instead of saying, well, just get over it and suck it up, Buttercup, how about working through that fear, working through that attachment? And really, would it have been so wrong if, because of the circumstances that he came into the Jedi Order, if they had done something to make sure that she was okay, or let him know when she got married and got freed? Would it really kill them to do that, to put him at peace with that? So wrong there.
Yeah, and I forgot to add too here is that when you look at the Revenge of the Sith, and he's sitting down talking about his fears about his wife dying, even though he doesn't say that to Yoda. Basically, he tells him, he must let go of his fear,
Mm-hmm.
of that attachment, let go of that fear. So he goes into
Exactly.
council. He doesn't really tell exactly what that's about, but
Mm-hmm.
he is told by Yoda. So I thought that was interesting to compare the both scenes with his journey about regarding that fear, regarding about that maybe that dismissal of that.
Yeah. Well, yes, when Yoda's like, let go of that fear, I almost felt like he should have said Han Solo's line, I'm glad you're here to tell us these things. It's like, of course I'd like to let go of the fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, if only it were that easy.
Exactly. So Stig, do you have anything to add to that?
No, she's right, and so were
Okay.
you.
Nothing else then. Nothing whatsoever. Maybe something we missed.
No.
Yeah. Okay. And then Steven Saucedo and Anakin basically is in turmoil the moment he left home, and he was trying everything he could to control it, but he was always in conflict. And that's the thing. And that's what it goes back to why they recruited Jedi as young as they did, is because they basically conditioned them, and they learn that the Jedi that they learn from and the Jedi is basically their family. And so still they still have some attachment, and you kind of sense that in Obi-Wan at the end of Revenge of the Sith, because he's already attached to Anakin, and he's lost his brother, he's lost his his friend, his Padawan, and you could tell that there's that attachment there. So that was very fascinating with to me. It's like you can't be attached to anybody else but the Order.
Yeah, and this is why Jedi don't have emails, because they can't have attachments.
Oh my goodness. And then, I'm going to go to and talk a little bit about the EU. Luke Skywalker, when we go into the original lore, he became the Jedi his dad was supposed to be. And then he also recreated the new Jedi Order and corrected some of those little nuances that caused problems for the Jedi, including Anakin. So I thought that was a great nod to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Let me see. Before you move on, I'm going to check out some of these chats because I haven't been addressing them that much other than showing their comments. You're also dealing with someone who isn't human and doesn't have experience with human feelings. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that they're the humanoid, but you would think that their brains are wired differently and how they're raised in their culture to perceive things. But when they're all raised, no matter what species are, if they're all raised in the Jedi Order, they're all raised to think the same thing. So what you're saying is that they indoctrinated those kids. Basically, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Well,
I
to be
agree with
fair,
Will there.
yeah, it is a cult. They even wear robes, and they have a code they follow.
Mm-hmm. Just
It
like
is a
any
cult.
order, just like any Force society, they were basically a cult. And there's many Force societies other than Jedi and Sith in Star Wars lore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the fact that if you have to depend on people coming in as babies for your survival, yeah, that's a little bit disturbing. You should be able to have free will. It almost sounds like that the Jedi don't believe in free will.
Well, they at the time they in a sense they didn't, or in a sense that was not their focus, I guess you can say. But time Luke Skywalker came in and built the new Jedi Order in the original lore, there was the free will. There's even one point in time when he told them, this is the commitment of our order. Families are still top priority for you guys, but there'll be times where you need to tell your family, I can't, I have this commitment to take care of at this time and stuff. So he even told them that the commitment is the Jedi Order, but we will not, the family is still priority. So I thought that was really played with Luke Skywalker, and that trilogy is in the Darkness trilogy when he addressed that. And so I thought that was really neat. And like I said, if you guys have not got into the EU, especially post Return of the Jedi, where we see Luke Skywalker changing the order for the good, and in those simple terms of attachments and families and stuff like that, go ahead and start reading, because then you'll learn a lot about the difference between the old order and the new order. The old order wasn't flawed in a sense where people said, oh, well, they were very, very corrupt. They were flawed, but not corrupt, if that makes sense. With anything, there's always needs to be change, and, willing to progress over time, is something that, should be the focus. But the old order didn't want to progress. They wanted to stay within their own, I guess you could say, realms. It's more than disturbing. It's some serious first order grab them when they're babies and can't say no shit. No, not necessarily. Yeah, there were some that were taken away, but more than likely parents allowed them to take them.
What's
So
with the wind?
I don't know.
Did you fall asleep, Teresa?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a sound?
Yeah, you're
Oh,
breathing
yeah.
into your mic.
You're breathing heavily.
Oh, I made a maxima culpa. I had no idea.
All right. So let's move on from there. So now we get into the brilliance of Palpatine. And we get to see his evolution from becoming the senator of Naboo and working with Padme with this trade federation and trying to, free Naboo from the blockade that the Federation created, to, manipulating from there all the way to Revenge of the Sith, when we see him basically becoming the Supreme Chancellor through emergency votes and then taking control after the Order 66. So, if you guys want to share with me how you felt about Palpatine and his brilliance within the evolution in the PT from one movie to from the Phantom Menace to the Revenge of the Sith. So, Teresa, I'm going to have you start with that.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, you're talking about the evolution of Palpatine, the way he is in the Phantom Menace versus Revenge of the Sith. Okay,
yeah, his brilliance in it and stuff. Stuff.
Oh well, I've already talked about, I think, especially how he is in the Phantom Menace, how sneaky he is and how smooth and charming. And then when you see him in Revenge of the Sith, he is a little more forceful in it, but he's still very seductive and manipulative. But boy, when he just goes full out Sith and becomes the Emperor, oh my gosh. It's almost over the top. How he's cackling and throwing things at Yoda. I almost don't like it. I almost think it's a little bit too much.
Okay.
That scene with Yoda, but the scene where he's proclaiming himself Emperor, I think, is magnificent.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's like chills too as well. And then how he lies about the Jedi, saying that they were trying to, take over, which they weren't trying to take over whatsoever. But so I thought that was brilliant. He well played it. He played the Jedi so much as well. He manipulated everything. He blinded the Jedi in the Force. He cloaked himself through the Force so they couldn't really sense him at all. So he was right there in front of them, and they couldn't sense him as a Sith or as a Darksider. Mace Windu did a little bit because he's like, I sense the dark Force, the dark side around Palpatine, So he started sensing this. But as we get along in the movie, especially in Revenge of the Sith, that's when he starts lifting that cloak. Little by little. So like, I got you. But he manipulated the, both sides of the war as well as the Jedi by blinding them. And
definitely great at playing 4D chess. And can I give honorable, magnificent mention to the scene in the opera house when he's talking
we're going to get to that. Yeah, so hold that there. We're going to get to that. That one's its own little topic in its own. So go ahead, Stig, if there's anything you want to elaborate or add to what we talked about.
Well, the only thing I can add to it is you see what a tactical climber Palpatine is. Because he's getting a better position in each movie.
Yeah.
So he's gaining power, not just as a Sith, but also as a politician, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, overall, his evil brilliance, he has made it's just very fascinating how he was the manipulator, how he skillfully crafted everything so he can become power over the universe, and who we see in the OT. And by the time we get to the OT, he's more of the boss behind the scenes, and it's more about Vader. But just knowing, once we see the Emperor, just knowing how he got there and how even Vader bows down to him, the most feared villain in history bows down to this man in this cloak. Now we understand. And I think that's great writing right there. Brilliant writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so now we get to Mace's trust in Anakin. And so we know that, he has stated that he doesn't trust him, and he's even told that to Anakin. So what is your guys' opinion between Mace Windu's and Anakin's relationship? Because we see him like not really trusting him from the beginning, and then once we get to Revenge of the Sith, he basically says that he doesn't trust him. Like if this is true, then you would have earned my trust.
Mm-hmm.
So if Stig, we'll start with you. So what is your opinion between Mace's opinion and the relationship between Mace and Anakin?
Well, Anakin is a bit off-putting all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and he's no doubt done a lot of shady stuff during the Clone Wars. When the Revenge of the Sith was written, right,
Mm-hmm.
the canon stuff from the Clone Wars was in the comics, the excellent Clone Wars comics, and
Yeah.
he did a bunch of shady stuff there.
Yeah.
Gave into the dark side a couple of times, and
Yeah.
Mace Windu is one of the top Jedi's. He will be getting reports
Mm-hmm.
about stuff that has happened.
Yeah.
And he knows Anakin has been doing his own agenda a little bit because of Padme.
Mm-hmm.
And Mace is he's a Grand Master, isn't he?
He's not Grandmaster, but he is like the what's the name of the title? He's basically the leader of the High Council.
Yeah.
Actually, he gave up that title right after Attack of the Clones. So in history, if you look it up, usually the Grandmaster carries both titles, because that leader of the High Council is usually a vote. They vote that person in. So Mace Windu was basically in the pecking order, right under Yoda, and so he's like one of the few that got to carry that title without being Grandmaster. And then he gives it up right before before the Clone Wars begins, and because he feels like he can't really lead that in a clear space or mind, I guess you can say. And so Yoda takes on both of those titles by then, but he's still held in high regards. Yes.
Well, my point was though that Mace Windu can smell bullshit,
Mm-hmm.
and he's smelling it from Anakin, and he's right. That something is off about Anakin.
Yeah.
And he has just killed Dooku, which is murder in cold blood, really, after he was defeated.
Yeah.
And they will sense stuff like that, right? Because they sense the dark side in people and stuff like that. And something about Anakin is putting Mace off. And I think Yoda kind of senses it too.
Yeah. And so what's interesting about that as well is that in the beginning, they were clouded by the dark side. So there's still like an inkling of like, this is not right. But as we get close to Revenge of the Sith, that cloak, like I said, is starting to be lifted because we're coming to the conclusion. And so then they're starting to sense more and more of like, oh crap, what the hell's going on here? And so I get that, by the time we see the Revenge of the Sith, that Mace is like, okay, if this is true, then I will have trusted you, blah, blah, blah kind of deal. So sensing now more of what's going on at the last installment of the trilogy does make sense. Yeah. Yeah. So you want to expand a little bit more, or are you finished?
Oh, I'm finished.
All right. So Teresa, so tell me what you think about their relationship from what you've seen.
From Mace Windu.
And
well, yeah, all the way from the beginning, in that scene where you see Anakin with Mace Windu. Yeah, he he has no use for Anakin, and I think that he not only wants to keep him at arm's length, but he also comes across as almost condescending to him. It's
Yeah.
like, no, little boy, you just wait here while we go take care of this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of it is because he didn't trust him, but it's like, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
If Anakin is one of your brother Jedi Knights, and you need to treat him as such.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what I see from that, and my take is that Anakin, in the years of training, because he wasn't brought in at a very young age, he was brought in at 9. So in a sense, even though he is the chosen one and he has that great force strength, or strength in the force, his learning levels and his levels of adaptation to the order and stuff like that is still basically in its adolescence. And so that's how I see Mace sees him, is that he still needs time to adapt and to grow. And he also sees him that he still has pride, and he still has he's still naive as well. And so I see that as someone, correcting their unruly child as well.
Yeah.
And then, Anakin does have pride, because all his life in there, he's been told he's the chosen one. So he feels like he has special privileges as well. So that's the little push and pull I see between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very deep when you think about it, because,
Yeah.
the chosen one is not perfect. And we learn that. Then chosen ones shouldn't be perfect. They're not supposed to be godly either. That's how I see it. And, I've debated this with other people, and, and like, they're like, well, then, it's kind of wrong that he turned dark. I'm like, it kind of makes sense when you look at the force, because the force, for him to establish balance in the force that George intended was the light side is balance, the dark side is not. And so he went from light to dark and then was redeemed again, creating balance. And so I think it fits perfectly, because the chosen one went, from one extreme to the other, showing us what example of balance and, being not balanced is. And so there's a whole story. There's a whole, just like a theme behind that when you look at Vader. And it's very, very tragic. Very, very tragic. Anakin's story is very tragic.
Yeah, I always found it to be very much like a Greek tragedy, and especially with the whole self-fulfilling prophecy, that by trying to avoid certain things like Padme's death, like everything that he acted on to avoid it, only made it inevitable.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a great way to look at it, because we have the hero's journey for Luke, and then we have the Greek tragedy for Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
And, so there's a lot of mythos that George uses in his stories. So let's go ahead and go to I wanted to kind of leave the duels, the battles, for almost the last part, because those are like the most thrilling. So let's go ahead and look at the Naboo battle from the Phantom Menace, and how they convinced the Gungans to take their side, and how they orchestrated that battle, and then versus the battle above Coruscant. So we have kind of like towards the middle end of the Phantom Menace, that battle on Naboo, and then the battle above Coruscant. So which one, I probably know which one's your favorites, maybe, but just, share which one's your favorite between those two scenes, and then which one, and then maybe elaborate or expand a little bit more on that. So Teresa, you can go ahead and give us your opinions and what you liked about it, and just elaborate between those two battles.
Okay, so looking at the battles, not necessarily the lightsaber battles.
No,
correct?
not the duels. No.
Okay, very well. Yes. Well, the Naboo battle, I thought it was mediocre. I could have done without it.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was a little battle, but to me, the real battle was going on with the duel there. So I don't really think too much about it. And there was that slapstick stuff with Jar Jar that I know the little kids loved it, but it's just not anything that I'm too interested in. But dang it, that beginning scene from Revenge of the Sith above Coruscant, holy crap, that was amazing. And just the way the music, it's kind of, I don't. It's quiet, and then it's just this, and then you just realize, and you're looking down, and all those ships, and you're above Coruscant. That was amazing. I loved it.
Okay. All right. And Stig, what did you think between the two battles, and expand on it a little bit more?
The Coruscant battle was awesome.
Yeah.
Wasn't a huge fan of the buzz droids, but you know, they just didn't seem practical because there's a good chance a lot of those buzz droids will miss.
Yeah.
They just float around in space. But the Naboo battle I thought was crap. It really was, because the Gungans have obviously some great technology. They can make, submarines. They have underwater cities. They have shield generators for those animals. But they don't have guns. They're basically throwing balls at people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's marvelously stupid. I mean, they should have had guns.
But it's still, in a sense, if you look at the technological wise of the Gungans,
But they're very advanced.
well, I know that, but I mean, does advanced society need to have guns though?
Yeah, especially since they're at war with Naboo that's in their history.
What if they've never? I'm just throwing out scenarios, hypothetical scenarios. So what if their culture, they never invented or had that invention in their culture, and so we're seeing what they invented in their culture.
Yeah, but
because my people never had guns until the contact of settlers, and we started using them towards later in our years, but in our early years we never did. So that's why I'm just saying, I'm just looking at it in that perspective.
Yeah, but if the Native Americans have had submarines, shield generators, and underwater cities, odds are they would have figured out how to make the weapons the enemies have.
Well, that's their society. They were living underwater, yeah. And so what if that was just what their culture did and stuff? It doesn't mean that they would invent guns. It just means that that's what their society had to survive.
Well, it's in the history, and you see this in the Darth Plagueis novel as well, I believe. They've been at war with the Naboo plenty of times. So if Naboo are using guns, they would have killed at least one soldier from Naboo and had a look at the gun.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like in their evolution, everybody evolves differently, and so but yeah, I understand. Like with contact of settlers, you're going to adopt their type of weaponry as well, and I get that as well. So that's just what I'm saying, is that their culture. That's their culture. We see how their culture evolved, how it did versus another culture. And sometimes cultures evolve very, very differently. Like, the Chinese invented guns, and then we invented gunpowder, and then that technology started advancing and spreading across the world. So I get evolution as well.
So, to be fair though, they had guns back in the Old Republic as well.
Yeah, I know.
So they're like that far behind, even though the people who live a few miles away have guns.
Yeah, and we can probably argue this with the Ewoks too, because they did have contact with by the Empire and soldiers and stuff, and could have took their guns after killing them, because they did kill prior to Endor, the Battle of Endor. They did kill some of the sword troopers as well and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, like, evolution, everybody evolves differently, and that's just my point.
Yeah, but this is like war over many years.
I know, but I'm just saying, just in general. So yeah. All right. Go on.
So that battle was stupid.
Yeah. And I thought some of the stuff were kind of interesting and neat, like with the little penetration bomb balls, or whatever you want to call them. I never looked up the term, so I don't.
I think they're ion bombs.
Ions? Okay. Good. That makes sense. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. But yeah, for me, between those two battles, between the two movies, Of course, Battle of Coruscant is hands down much, much better. But Battle of Coruscant is my absolute favorite space battle in Star Wars, like in the movies. I liked that one because there was so much depth. We got to see like the extreme battles, and then we got to see the precursor to, starships like the X-wings and stuff like that. The evolution of that between the movies and stuff. And so I hands down, I think Coruscant is, a lot better. Yeah. So, yeah. And then so we get the reveal of Maul in the Phantom Menace, and then we get to see Obi-Wan duel Grievous. So we get Obi-Wan basically, in a sense, he duels Maul. So we get Maul's reveal, and then we get to see his progress between those, and he duels Grievous. So my question here is, what did you guys think about Maul and seeing him for the first time? And we're not going to talk about the Duel of Fates just yet. Just basically like this observation, or just seeing Maul for the first time and realizing, oh shit, this is the Sith. And this can even lead back to when they first see him and they escape on the ship off of Tatooine. And then, then the duel, then Grievous, the duel with Obi-Wan and Grievous in The Revenge of the Sith. So what was your impressions between meeting Maul for the first time as a Darth or Sith, and then seeing Grievous, and which one is your favorite between the two? So Teresa?
Oh, well, for sure, Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Everything about Darth Maul I loved. I love the way that he starts off with his hood up, and he's got those little things that look like those training droids that Luke had, but they're really like little assassin spies. And he has this little badass motorcycle. Everything about him, I thought was fantastic.
Okay.
And from his revelation, and they teased us very well by keeping that hood up even during this first duel with Qui-Gon, and until then, of course, we finally see him in the Duel of the Fates where he takes the hood down. So that's pretty,
exactly,
pretty intense.
Yeah. So, Stig, what did you think? With seeing Maul for the first time, and then also seeing Obi-Wan duel Grievous. Who was your favorite between the two?
Maul for the first time is absolutely my favorite because he was awesome. When he threw back the hood and activated the double-bladed lightsaber and stuff, that was 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Grievous, I thought, was too cartoony almost. His voice as well sounded like something from a cartoon. Didn't like him that much, but now after having seen the Clone Wars, both of them are probably the two biggest pussies in Star Wars because both of them lose to a Padawan.
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't defeated Maul at this point?
Yeah.
You could have 3PO beat him, I suppose, easily. So those two characters are ruined if you consider the Clone Wars to be canon. Which is sad, but back then, before that happened, easily Maul. He was awesome.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's fair enough. Let me see here. I'm taking a look at my notes here. I did write some notes. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about, since we're talking about a lot of everything going down now, let's talk about, and like I said, the Duel of Fates versus the Battle of the Heroes will kind of be last because that's those are the scenes that everybody loves to talk about, and they're very phenomenal in their own right. Let's talk about Order 66 and Obi-Wan finding out about the truth in the temple. And so how did you feel about the whole thing with Order 66? And this is basically, we're just talking Revenge of the Sith, obviously. And also, how did you feel about Obi-Wan finding out the truth about Anakin when they go into the temple to reset the message to the Jedi, and him watching the holocron, of the temple and seeing Anakin in action. So Teresa, since I'm going to ask you first again, how did that make you feel with Order 66, knowing that Palpatine orchestrated it? And also Obi-Wan, and also too on top of that, I'm going to throw this one in because I don't want to pass this part up, is him revealing Plagueis to so this is going to be a loaded one, him revealing Plagueis to Anakin at the opera scene, him also revealing to Anakin about studying both the dark or the Sith and the Jedi when he talks to him in his office, and then Order 66, how you felt about that, and then Obi-Wan's, how you felt when you seen Obi-Wan's, you heartbreaking moment of finding about his Padawan. So this is a very loaded one.
Oh, I was about to say, no, what was the first question?
The opera house scene when he reveals. So we're talking about the revelation of the Sith all the way to Order 66, and then how Obi-Wan felt. So the opera scene when he reveals to Anakin and he's manipulating him and talking about Plagueis the Wise, Darth Plagueis the Wise, and then him. Then we're talking to Anakin about how he studies both the Jedi and the Sith, and he basically reveals to him in so many words that he is the Sith that they're looking for. And then Order 66, and when he declares Anakin Vader, and then Obi-Wan finding out about that, the slaughter and stuff in the Jedi Temple.
For sure. Well, as I've said previously, I think that the scene between Palpatine and Anakin at the opera is one of the best of the entire trilogy. Yeah. Just how subtle. How subtle and how amazing the acting is between the two of them. Just and Palpatine's just kind of looking forward, like, oh, let's look at the ballet or whatever it is, the opera that we're seeing. Yeah. And just every now and then he just like glances over and, oh, so casual. Do you know the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? And how he plays on him. And it's like, even conquers death. It was so well done. And the tension and dynamic between the two, it was some of the best acting, I think, also of the prequel trilogy. And then, of course, leading into that, of course, it made sense about when Palpatine revealed himself to Anakin. And probably the most unbelievable part of the entire trilogy is when he goes, your wife. And Anakin goes, what? It's like, really, Anakin? You didn't know that everyone knew you were banging Padme? Come on. I mean, they live together, they vacation together. I mean, he sleeps over at her house. I mean, it's like, really? Worst kept secret in the galaxy. But yeah, I thought that was all. What can I say? It was all very well done, and of course, Emma Stone does it fantastic. The part that got me about Order 66 was how surprised I was at how poignant it was. When he said Order 66 and you see them start to get the orders, it all made sense that that's what they were really up to when they were making the clones. But just how sad it was, especially Kai-Mundi, when he's doing the charge, like, come on. And then he realizes the clones aren't charging with him anymore. Yeah. And the look on his face. So that was a really, really intense scene, and I thought it was very well done. And maybe they should have thought about the potential for manipulation and making all these clones, that maybe something might have gone a bit awry, or the possibilities. So I forget what the last part of the question was.
And just how, and then how you felt when we learned and we watched Obi-Wan watch Anakin. Basically, he's seen on the holocron, security holocrons in the temple. Anakin pledging himself as Vader, and basically we've seen him watch the security holocrons and Anakin slaying the younglings and all that. So how did you feel about that? I mean, just seeing Obi-Wan and how much he's taken back in that moment when you first seen it, how did it make you feel?
Oh, well, that scene, I must admit, I was not very moved by that. I think that the weakest scenes of Revenge of the Sith were the ones that perhaps should have been the most pivotal. One was, I thought that when Anakin made the choice to choose the dark side, I thought that was a little too. I don't know what they could have done differently, but I remember it feeling very abrupt. And the same thing with Obi-Wan. He's like, "Oh, look at that! Oh, Anakin's killing everyone. He's evil." It did not move me. What moved me was later, because then you see that Obi-Wan has felt the impact of knowing that he's gone bad, but I'm not sure it was executed as well as it could have been.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now, do I have to repeat the question for you, Stig? Do you want me to go ahead and repeat everything, or do you have a clear idea of what you need to say?
Opera scene, Order 66, and then Kenobi.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and also the Chancellor's room where he talks to Anakin about learning both sides of the Force, basically, and revealing himself as a Sith.
Well, the opera scene is perfect.
Yeah.
And I know Ian McDiarmid gets a lot of praise because he steals the scene big time. It's all about him. But Hayden Christensen is actually very good in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Easy to overlook that, I think. Yeah, perfectly executed, and it even gives some background into Palpatine, which is pretty much the first time we get any background on him.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome scene, 10 out of 10. One of the best scenes in the 6 movies, really. The office scene is Palpatine playing his hand, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That one is a gamble, and it almost backfires.
Yeah. Yes.
But Anakin at that point is so full of fear for Padme, and that's what makes it work.
Yeah.
If Anakin had been single, that wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, exactly. There was like so much weight carrying behind just that relationship to his fall.
Yeah, that scene is the win or die scene for Palpatine.
Yeah.
Order 66 is on screen perfect because, well, if you read the comics leading up to Revenge of the Sith, and those comics were awesome because they fleshed out all the other Jedis.
Yeah.
You had piles of comics centered on Aayla Secura and Ki-Adi-Mundi, and most of the others. So it had a real impact when it happened. Shit, I've just read 200 pages about this character, and this is it. She's dead, right?
Yeah.
It just gets shot in the back. That made it have a lot more impact, and I think that was a little bit of fan service from George as well, giving the characters from the comics a proper death, I guess, on screen. Sadly, Filoni ruined the whole damn thing when he decided to change all those characters for the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And none of them are fleshed out in the Clone Wars. They're just in a few episodes. But there's no real, meat to their character. They're just in there, helping Anakin and Ahsoka win yet another mission.
Yeah.
So if you only watch the Clone Wars and movies, Order 66 won't have that much of an impact. If you read, the hundreds of comics that fleshes out those Jedis and their relationship with Anakin and the others, that's another thing entirely.
Yeah. Okay.
When it comes to Obi-Wan, though, that scene is actually, it has a movie mistake. Because Kenobi says to Yoda, send me to kill the Emperor, right?
Yeah.
Palpatine hasn't proclaimed himself an Emperor yet. That happens a few minutes later.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Whoopsie.
that's that's a whoopsie.
Whoopsie. Yep.
Maybe he saw the future. He saw the future.
Yeah,
The
probably.
future.
But that hollow bit though that he's watching is as damning as evidence can get.
Exactly.
He sees the whole damn thing, and he sees Anakin slaughter the younglings, and he realizes he's lost. Right, Anakin's gone. He's too far gone. He's killing kids, and I guess the shock on Kenobi is it feels very genuine on in the movie when it plays out.
Mhm.
But then he immediately goes back to being a Jedi.
Mm.
It's like his training kicks in because he's like fix the signal
Yeah.
and track down Anakin.
Yeah.
So that's when you know that Kenobi is probably one of the most true Jedi's in the whole series.
Yes.
It's his duty first right away, even if it's Anakin.
Yeah.
Yep.
When we see that at the end of the Battle of the Heroes as well, even though how much conflicted he is, he returns as a Jedi and goes on a mission, basically, to protect Luke. And we'll talk about more of that here in a few minutes. So go ahead and carry on.
Yeah. That's I see Jedi Padawan Tano say Plo Koon appeared a lot in the Clone Wars. Yes, he did, but he
Mhm.
wasn't fleshed out.
Yeah.
He was just in there to be there. In the comics, he actually has a backstory and an arc, and all of the other Jedi's have that too.
Yeah.
They've experienced wins, losses. Some of them even had dark side issues for a while, and I can't recommend them enough. They're awesome, and they're available in collected omnibuses now. So if anyone wants to read those, go get them.
Yeah. And then she
But
also says the Clone Wars fixed the Order 66 scene by making it emotional. I'm guessing she's talking about the season 7, especially the last one in the season, like episode 12, I guess it is. I did not watch that one. But my thing is that Order 66 to me, without even watching that, was very much emotional for me.
Well, season 7, it's season 7, right? Clone Wars.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It seems to be all about making Ahsoka retroactively one of the most important characters in Star Wars, and it doesn't work because the story was written 20 years ago without that character, and you can't just insert a new character into an already written story. Messes things up. And Ahsoka isn't a bad character, but she doesn't belong there, right?
Yeah.
It's like you take just add another character to the Terminator franchise retroactively, and if you watch the movie, you'll know. Yeah, he was behind that dumpster all the time. It doesn't work. But I don't mind that people like the Clone Wars. I mean, if you like it, watch it every day. So it's all good. I'm just disagreeing. It's an entertaining show, but it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
It shouldn't be canon because it's added later in between chapters, and that always messes things up.
Yeah.
All right. And so let's go ahead and take a look at Yoda versus Palpatine and Mace versus Palpatine. So we have Yoda, and this is the first time we ever get to see Yoda. Well, no, this is the second time, but this is the first time we get to see him duel ever, the Emperor or Palpatine or Sidious, whatever we want to call him. But, and it's basically, they seem like they're so much equally matched. And then we also have Mace versus Palpatine, and this is where we see the catalyst of Anakin deciding, oh shit, should I help out Mace and the Jedi, or should I just go ahead and think about my own means? So Stig, I'm going to have you go ahead and elaborate on this first, and then we'll go to Teresa. So how did that make you feel, and your opinion to those two scenes, you know, starting with Yoda versus Palpatine fight, and then Mace versus Palpatine?
Mace versus Palpatine happens first. I'll probably do that first. I thought Ian McDermott's fighting skills left a bit to be desired.
Okay.
Because you can see his moves and they're kind of slow and obvious, but you know, he still kills. What was it, 2 or 3 Jedi Masters? I thought that was could have been executed better, right?
Yeah.
Because they just stand there and get stabbed. Mace versus Palpatine. Mace is clearly the better fighter, and he's known to be like a sword master, so that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I think Palpatine is trying to kill him though, but he loses and makes the best out of the situation when Anakin shows up.
Yeah.
And I've double checked this because some people say that when his face gets fried, right, it's because he uses so much of the Force that you can see his real self.
Yeah.
That's not what happens. He gets fried. I saw George say it. It's the lightning hitting his face and melting it. So Mace actually leaves a mark on the galaxy by messing up Palpatine. But that there is, you know, Anakin's choice when he attacks Windu. And Windu is technically falling to the dark side there because he's about to kill him in cold blood.
Yeah.
So he's walking a fine line himself, and so Anakin chopping his arm off can kind of be justified because Jedi aren't supposed to kill prisoners. But it's ironic since Anakin did it to Dooku.
Yes.
So it's at the end of the day, what Anakin does is a purely selfish thing. And he's trying to justify it by telling Windu he can't kill him because that's not what the Jedi do, even if he's done it himself. So that's hypocrisy as well.
Yeah, and I didn't cover the part where he duels, where they duel Dooku and save Palpatine and blah blah blah. So we didn't really touch bases on that. But now that you mentioned that about that, yeah, both times Anakin was doing everything kind of selfishly and being led by Palpatine. So you could see the manipulation in that from both scenes. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Yoda versus Palpatine thing was Yoda entering the office is awesome.
Yeah.
He just dismisses the 2 guards by knocking them out.
Yeah.
And they're very evenly matched. Once they start fighting, they do lightsabers for a little bit, and then it goes into full Force power, which is what the characters are about. They're about the Force, light and dark.
Yeah.
And it's literally light versus dark. Because Yoda, for the most part, is fighting defensively, basically turning Palpatine's attacks back on him. And Palpatine goes ape shit. Throws everything at him.
Yeah.
So you see a kind of a contrast there. Well, a big contrast in how a Jedi Master would fight a Sith Master. And I think it got maybe a bit too much though with the throwing.
Like you dragged on just a little tiny bit, maybe.
Yeah, could have thrown a chair instead of the whole. I don't know, but it's a cool fight. Maybe a bit too flashy.
Yeah.
So I'm giving it an 7.5 out of 10.
Okay. All right. So, Teresa, what did you think about Mace's fight, you know, with Palpatine and Yoda's fight? And just, you know, give us your thoughts about that, you know, what you've noticed and like when you first seen it, How did it make you feel?
Yeah.
If there's anything you want to elaborate on.
Oh yeah, I loved the Palpatine with Mace and the other dudes. When I first saw for the first time Palpatine use a lightsaber, something we'd never seen, and it being a red lightsaber, I thought it was great. And some of the slower movements, the way I interpreted it, was like a steamroller. It might have been slower, but it was in his strength that he was doing that. But for sure, yeah, it was obvious that Mace was a far better fighter. And the only part I found unrealistic about the whole thing is that as Mace was sitting there fighting him, and he got him on his back, and all of that happened, why on earth didn't Mace just do the killing blow just right there? Fight, 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 kill. But no, Anakin, comes in and tells him to stop, and then he starts to argue with him. For me, I was like, shut up the arguing and just kill him already. If you're going to kill him, you're not going to stop and go, now let us sit around and have a study about, should I kill him? Should I not kill him? I think that was almost a because plot moment that he didn't go for the kill immediately. Was that perhaps dark? Yeah, maybe. But on the other hand, what you have is the whole preemptive strike kind of thing, the argument, well, if you had a chance to assassinate Hitler in cold blood, would you have done it if you knew? So I never had a problem with that. I just had a problem with the fact that he just should have shut up, or he shouldn't have listened to Anakin. Just said, shut up, kid, I'm killing him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought that there were many parts of the Yoda versus Sidious fight that were pretty cool. Stig already pointed them out. I thought it got over the top though, especially toward the end, and with the cackling and some of the stuff with Sidious, I thought it got very cartoony. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like the ending of that duel was bizarre. It's like Yoda falls over, his cloak floats down, and then it's like he slinks away. I was always wondering, why the hell didn't Palpatine just jump down and finish up the little Muppet? Maybe I missed something. I don't know, but I've always felt like there was something wrong about that. It's like he just lets him go away with his floating little cloak behind him. I don't know. I felt like they were going more for symbol rather than realism there.
Yeah, maybe. And what I think too is that, part of I'm just going to go into the lore now. Like part of him knowing that, that Obi-Wan and Yoda most likely survived. Part of that was like they can atone for 1,000 years, just like the Sith had to atone for 1,000 years. So he also seen that as a reason of getting back or revenge, is having these Jedi atone. Yeah. So I mean, but that's just my perspective. But I've gone into the EU and stuff like that, but without being in the EU and stuff, part of, thinking about that situation maybe is that he's like, I'll deal with this little guy later. I have shit to do. I don't know. But we do know that for the plot, for the OT, Palpatine had to survive, Yoda had to survive, Obi-Wan had to survive, and Anakin, ascending into Vader, of course, had to survive. Everybody else did not matter. So, maybe things weren't fleshed out as well, or maybe it could have been done a little bit better, maybe. But those are the things that we know for the continuing story. Yeah. And
that's why I felt like because plot, a little bit of plot armor there.
Yeah, and rightfully so. There has to be some type of, and it could have maybe done a little bit better, maybe, who knows. And so, I'm not going to touch bases on Padme and her her dying, for her reasons for dying. We kind of talked about that already, and that we know that the twins, are born and they take them, Bail Organa and Kenobi take them to their prospective families. We already know that. So let's go ahead and get into the Duel of Fates, because I have some little bit of time. I know that I might be going over a little bit, but I have to be at work at a certain time. So let's go ahead and get to the Duel of Fates versus the Battle of the Heroes. This is such a hard one to choose by. So the question is which one is your favorite? And also, just expand on each one of them as well. So Teresa, I'll go ahead and start with you. So between the two, which one was your favorite? And then you can also expand on both of the battles.
Sure. Duel of the Fates was my favorite battle.
Okay.
I had always expected it was going to be the Battle of the Heroes until I saw it. I thought that there were some aspects of that battle that I found to be disappointing, but the Duel of the Fates was perfection from beginning to end. Not just how beautifully shot it was and the music, but Ray Park's virtuoso performance was incredible. But not to take away from Ewan McGregor's, particularly in that battle. Throughout the whole thing, he was doing some really killer moves. And then at the end of the battle, when they're being separated, right after he's killed Qui-Gon, and you just see Obi-Wan just getting ready, and he's like bouncing on his feet. And then the second the shield goes down, he just goes medieval on him. I just thrilled, absolutely thrilled. Great performance by both of them. And I thought that the emotion was really high. And of course, it helped that we had the Duel of the Fates music throughout the whole thing, pushing us forward and getting us into those emotions. I rewatched The Phantom Menace several times, but there were some times where we would just go just to see the battle. We just like, oh, we'll just show up late. We don't want to see the rest of it, but we want to see Duel of the Fates again.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then so Kenobi, Kenobi to let me know. And it's very interesting because I love these two battles because of the fact that we get to see Kenobi as a Padawan and then Kenobi as a master. So which one was your favorite? And then you could go ahead and, expand your opinion or elaborate more on both of the battles, the duels.
I think the Battle of the Heroes is the best one.
Okay.
Because there's more at stake. Both characters are extremely invested in the outcome.
Okay.
And it's basically two brothers trying to kill each other. Yeah, it's more of an event, and it's a galactic event because that's what settles, the war, right? Vader gets fully born because of it, and the Jedi go into exile. So it's the conclusion, in a way. The Fates looks better.
Yeah.
It's better choreographed. It has way cooler moves, and it's way more badass, really, than the other one. But for story reasons, I'm sticking with Duel of the Heroes.
Okay. Battle of the Heroes. Remember, you told me I need to repeat it because I called it Duel of the Heroes before we came in the live stream. Now you have to repeat that 10 times, Mr. Kenobi.
Technically, it should be the Duel of Heroes.
I know.
Because it's only two.
Yeah.
But
that is true.
The mall fight should be a battle because that is three people. It's not a duel if it's two versus one.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah, and I would agree about what Stig said about the emotional impact. The scene from the point where he goes, "I have the high ground," to the end of that entire scene was amazing. I guess it's just more the fact that to me that wasn't part of the fighting, because most of the sword stuff was done by then, except when Anakin gets turned into a torso by Obi-Wan. But the passion in that scene, as Obi-Wan is yelling at him, "You were my brother," and he's crying, and then Anakin just yells, "I hate you." Oh, I mean, it's that part just tears at your heart.
And just Kenobi saying, I loved you, and his plea back to him as well. It's just so. And so my favorite movie out of the PT is Revenge of the Sith, and the Battle of the Heroes, or Duel of the Heroes, basically is my most favorite battle and my second favorite in the 6 movies, my first in the PT. And it is the emotional the emotional contact of that. And seeing, we know that they both don't die, but we know one transforms into the Sith Lord and the other one goes and protects the Hope, and is basically set up to train further and also train the New Hope. So we know that from there we see the son and the father in the next 3 movies. And so just that emotional weight in that, and how they act and how much they know each other's dueling techniques. So it's like almost like a draw. So they almost, because they, Obi-Wan trained Anakin, and of course that also means with lightsaber dueling techniques as well. So they know each other inside and out, and that's what resonates with me too, because the emotional weight it brings throughout the whole damn fight, and and the very little banter that they have back and forth, because they hardly talk in that. We see a lot more action, and that alone right there, with the Duel of Fates, we know that this is the catalyst to Anakin, or to Obi-Wan training and taking his place in being a bigger person in this galactic affairs, and also training the chosen one. So yeah, that's the catalyst to it. But basically the Battle of the Heroes is what is the overall more emotional transformation of into the OT. So that's why I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so so now we're going to come to a conclusion. So now we have the twins born, we have Vader. One last question, and then actually 2 last questions, and then we're going to start closing out. Is that we have Vader now, and we see him on the operating table. We see the huge symbolism, because when you're looking down at the operating table, you can see the Empire symbol and through the lights coming through the bottom of the floor. And we see him turning, being transformed into Vader, and then finally his coming out and seeing the mask and everything, and at the very end with them looking at the Death Star being built. So tell me how that resonated with you, how that made you feel, and if you want to expand on that a little bit more, go ahead. So Stig, go ahead and begin.
Well, the Vader scene I thought was almost perfect, because that little when you hear the breath for the first time, awesome, perfect. Didn't like when he starts screaming no.
No.
I would have much rather seen him go berserk and smash the heck out of the whole lab, really. Just go into full blown rage. That's just my personal opinion, though. As for the Death Star thing, yeah, that was a nice little nod to the OT, I thought. And also shows how long it takes to build one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a huge thing, and you're doing it in space. It's a massive undertaking, and the Empire took a huge loss when Luke blew up the Death Star. Yeah, that's it, really. It's just I didn't like the no thing.
Yeah.
And that they've added that crap to the Blu-rays now too. In episode 6,
Oh,
it starts yelling no before he grabs Palpatine.
Yeah.
garbage.
All right. So go ahead, Stick. Sorry.
Yeah, just stop messing with the movies. They're good enough.
Yeah.
Don't need to add an Ewok or extra line to every scene.
Yeah.
Leave them alone.
Right. And Stig has spoken. So Teresa, so again, which one was so how did you feel about that whole transformation ending scene of Vader? And how did it make you feel? And you can go ahead and elaborate or expand on it a little bit more as well.
Yeah, I think Stig kind of said it all. It was perfect. It was everything I frankly could have dreamed of. The way it was filmed, the way the music was, and the part where you see Anakin on his back and he's in pain, he's yelling because he's all burned. And then as the mask comes down on him, and then you like see his face like right before it covers him up, like it's for the last time.
Yeah.
Even though we know he's going to take his mask off. I thought that was incredible. And as Steve said, it goes quiet and then the breath. That was absolutely perfection. I can't say anything wrong with it. And I agree also with the scene with him and Palpatine. If they'd have just taken out the no part, it would have been awesome. If you'd have just seen him going nuts and just tearing everything up, and then Palpatine going, that's great. But when it went into the no, it went into a parody. I was just waiting for him to start yelling, Stella. It was just absurd.
And do you guys realize this? I understand that we do see like a glimpse of Vader with his helmet being put on in the OT, but do you realize that the Revenge of the Sith is when we see the mask going on basically forever, in a sense, like for the viewers, and then Return of the Jedi, we finally get to see it come off. And that we see Anakin's face in the beginning from all the burns and the trauma from the lava. And then we see him again, very, very pale skin with still scarring, significant scarring, and just the years of it not really fully having any sunlight or any air other than, back to tank and the meditation sphere. It's very, very compelling. It's like, it's like seals his fate, and then once he's redeemed, his fate is open. It's not sealed anymore, and he's redeemed. And so and I like to get into a lot of like not spiritual, but like I like to really digest into the mythical, maybe spiritual, cultural stuff when it comes to even Star Wars and anything that's fantasy that has that kind of background. And that's probably why, I love yoga, because there's a lot of similarities with looking into the myths of yoga and stuff like that. And so I really like to dive into stuff like that and just seeing that transformation and seeing things in that kind of light. And so that's, to me, what's very interesting, is that we get to see his fate sealed as Vader. And then again, that redemption we get to see that helmet be taken off. And
it ties into Greek tragedy and stuff, because the suit is symbolism. Anakin has been sent to hell.
Exactly.
That's what happened. He's in hell. He's consumed with pain, hatred, and rage.
Yeah.
And it takes Luke to bring him out from hell, basically. In episode 6. So there's a lot of mythos and stuff like that in it.
Exactly. We may only know, like a lot of people may only are very familiar with Luke's mythos with the hero's journey, but like it's a Greek tragedy for mytho kind of thing for Anakin. And so basically George did put a lot of thought into how these mythos make the story timeless.
Exactly.
So my last question for you guys, and thank you guys for coming in and listening. Sorry we didn't address you guys, or I didn't ask you guys to ask them questions, because I do have a time schedule. The studio I work at is finally like semi reopening, and we're taking advantage of that for our dancers to take pictures. And they're just single pictures. They don't get to do groups or anything because we have to meet standards right now. So I got called into work today, so I'm going to go help out with that.
It's probably difficult to get a clear picture if you're taking the picture while dancing.
No, it's their dance poses, darling. they're posing in dance in like still life. But anyways, so Teresa, what is your favorite movie in Star Wars, like overall? Then what is your favorite movie in the PT, and what is your favorite movie in the OT? And you don't have to explain it if you don't want to. You could just give exactly the names and that's it, or you can explain it. So go ahead.
Well, my favorite of the entire 6 movies is The Empire Strikes Back, hands down. Absolutely adore it. There's nothing wrong with that movie. It is perfection from beginning to end. My favorite of the prequel trilogy, it would be Revenge of the Sith. It's definitely the best of the lot.
Okay. All right. And then so the overall, or is that first one you said overall and OT?
Yeah, it's got to be overall. Nothing beats The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
No.
All right. Awesome. And Stig, what is yours overall? And then favorite PT and favorite OT movie?
Well, Empire is the best one, I think,
Okay.
start to finish. But the more I think about it, I think A New Hope is my favorite,
Oh.
even though it's not the best, probably. But
Mhm.
I have the fondest memories of it.
Yeah.
So, nos- I'm letting nostalgia decide.
Well,
Okay.
that's fair.
As for the prequels, Revenge of the Sith is the best one.
Okay.
Yeah, but A New Hope is my favorite, but Empire is the best overall.
Mhm.
Okay. Awesome. So for me, for the PT Revenge of the Sith and the Battle of the Heroes is one of the major reasons why, but also I like the transformation of Anakin just in general into Vader. That to me is why I love Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, we get to see it slowly happen over 3 movies, but just the emotional context of every single scene in Revenge of the Sith, and seeing that conflict, and also seeing the conflict with the Jedi Order on trying to figure out how to overcome these evil threats that are facing them, and finally getting to see what's really going on because that cloak is being lifted, and just the sheer evil and manipulative genius of Palpatine as well.
Mhm.
That's why I love Revenge of the Sith. And then and I'm the minority here for the OT, Return of the Jedi, and it's the same. It's emotional and maybe even spiritual, mythological context, because we get to see Anakin redeemed. We get to see Luke become, over, or finish his hero's arc and become a Jedi. We get to see the conclusion, and even the duel there is has a lot of emotional context for me, and so that's why I like that as well. Empire I love because we have the big reveal scene and we get to see Luke training and we get to see that arc, but overall those 2, 3 and 6 are my absolute favorite. My overall is Return of the Jedi as well, so again I am in the minority when it comes to OT. So yeah.
Well, it's perfectly acceptable to be wrong now and again.
In your opinion, you think I'm wrong. So that means, yeah. So, but, even just in general, I love the two arcs of, and what their context in between those 2 movies. Um, and then the emotional battles that are happening in those 2 movies. Yeah, there's a lot of emotional context in them that leads up to a either a bittersweet conclusion or a very like oh my god, yes, kind of like happy conclusion. So yeah. So with that being
A happy ending.
a happy ending, exactly. And so I'm gonna end with this. So hold on, where did it go? Make sure I get the quote right. Why did you leave? Okay. All right. So before I have you guys tell where everybody can find you, and I'm pretty sure that they know. So this is how Liberty dies, with thunderous applause. So thank you guys for coming in and joining us for the tribute to the Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. Very great. I love the PT. My most favorite trilogy is the OT. PT, I love it because it's still consistent with the story. There's a lot of emotional weight that goes into the OT as well. So Teresa, tell them where they can find you.
Why you can find me at Miss Martin Muses on YouTube and on Twitter, Teresa _Martin. And I look forward to seeing you all in cyberspace.
All right. And thank you for joining me as well. And we were supposed to have Mary Mayhem, but she couldn't make it, so maybe next time I'll have her just individual interview regarding Star Wars as well, because we still have May 25th coming up, and so I'll talk about that in a few seconds. So Stig, tell us where we can find you as well.
Usually on every channel except my own. seems to be tossed around on panels, which is fine. I like it. Always fun to talk nerdy with people.
Yeah.
But, I'm more of a panelist than a YouTuber, though. I just have a tiny channel with some nonsense on it. But
okay.
I'm doing Game of Thrones. Sorry, Song of Ice and Fire. We're talking about the books, not the show, on Sporking's channel, and I'm having a blast with that. It's a weekly thing.
Okay.
And so if everyone want to see that, go sub to Sporking News podcast. I'm there with him and Christy and Jane Theory, which are all good people. So sub to them,
Yeah. All right, and thank you again for coming on and having me question you, what you like, and also just in general talk about these two movies here again. The anniversary, I'll probably binge watch them tonight after I get off of work. It's going to be kind of crazy not having Attack of the Clones in between, or I might just binge watch the whole trilogy. So Thursday, because I didn't do lore video today, and this is what I'm considering my lore video. So Thursday is we're going to go ahead and talk about the whole PT. And then also we can even include the EU around the PT as well. So that's what our lore is going to be about this week. It was going to go into the Corellian trilogy, post Return of the Jedi EU. But because we are visiting the anniversaries of these films, I figured we would just focus on this. And then on the 25th, I am hoping to have the Queen's Council on to talk about the OT, because May 25th, basically on, of course, separate years, we do have the whole trilogy sharing that anniversary, the OT trilogy. Yeah, but you know what I meant. And so again, you can find me on Toxic Femininity Monday nights. You could find me here on my channel as well, giving you a lot of EU George Lucas era lore, Star Wars lore. You can also find me on Phantom Menace once a month, and sometimes I do go on other channels. And so once I get the invitation, I will let you guys know. And then I am also on Queen's Council as well Thursday nights, and so you can catch me then as well, and also on Twitter. And if you have any EU questions, just hit me up and I can help you the best way I can. So thank you guys for coming in, and you guys have a great Tuesday, or if it's Wednesday or whatever, but have a great day, have a great evening, and thank you for stopping by, and may the Force be with you.